So this is going to be a different type of video. I'm not going to be complaining about search and destroy and getting killed by sweats all the time. I'm not going to complain about camping and camo grinding. I'm instead going to complain about the guns in general, by ranking every single one. So the way that we're going to do it is we're going to rank each gun based off of their class. So ARs will get their own ranking, battle rifles will get their own ranking, and so on and so forth. We start out with the ARs, and we're going to go in order that the guns are unlocked. So the first gun of each class is the one that we're going to start with, and then we're going to go into order out of each one you unlock. So the M4, the first AR, it's pretty boring. There's nothing that exciting about it. The description for it is literally a reliable workhorse. Is a jack of all trades that performs well in most combat scenarios. So it's quite literally the jolt, and it is not good at anything, and it is not bad at anything, which means it is the definition of B tier. And they're not wrong either. The recoil is okay, the fire rate is okay, the speed of it is okay, like movement speed and mobility isn't that bad. So yeah, B tier is a pretty good spot for it. Next we move on to the TAC 56. It's like the M4 but better. Slower fire rate, but more damage and less recoil. And more ammunition, kinda, because it shoots slower so the bullets last longer. Less forgiving, but better than the M4. A tier. After that, we probably have the best mid-range AR in the game. We got the Kastov 7.62 or the AK-47. There's nothing much to really say about it. It is just the best gun. It does the most damage out of any AR. It has an okay fire rate. The recoil control is actually manageable. And the bullet velocity is good in case you're playing Warzone, that fucking dog shit ass game mode. So in case you ever wanted to know what the best mid-range AR in this game was, you have your answer. The Kastov 7.62, S tier. We go from the heights of S to the midness of C class, and in the C rank we have the Lockman 5.56. Very high fire rate, recoil is okay. The damage though, not that good. It's kinda dog shit. It's good at close range, but it's an AR, and you could just use the MP5 instead of this thing at close range. So I don't know what the purpose of this thing is. I hope they buff it in the future, but currently it is in C tier. The AUG, or the STB 5.56. These fake names suck, by the way. The STB 5.56. Okay fire rate, okay damage, okay recoil. It's basically like the M4, but worse. So it's going into C tier. And now the M16. My least favorite gun in the game. I'm not even gonna put it on the tier maker, simply because fuck this thing. It's going all the way down to hell tier, F minus times infinity tier, whatever the fuck you want to call it. This thing sucks. It's the worst gun in the game. Doesn't have a ranking, no ranking. This thing sucks. Now the Kastov 74U, or the 74U as most people call it. This is the best AR in the game. Better than the AK-47. It has pretty good damage, okay fire rate, but the thing is, it's built like an SMG. So that means it moves like an SMG, but it has the range of an AR, and it has the damage of an AR. So you're mixing an SMG and an AR, and then when you combine them, you get this thing, and it is actually fucking amazing. S tier. And now we go to the 74U's brother, the 5.45. This thing sucks. It's the worst AR in the game that's not called the M16. Just because it works like the 74U, but it's worse than the 74U in every single way, even in range. And this thing is supposed to be a rangier version of the 74U. It's slower, the fire rate I think is slower, the movement speed is slower, the aim down sight speed is slower. Everything about it is slower, and it does less damage somehow with the longer barrel. So that's going into D tier. And now we move on to one of the newer DLC guns. This is the Chimera. It's like the 74U, but suppressed. And it technically does less damage, but overall it's actually pretty good. B tier. And the M13. I haven't unlocked this thing, because to unlock it you need to defeat the chemist in DMZ, and I am not playing DMZ. If my life depended on it, I am not playing DMZ. I'm going to die.
Oh my no!
Fuck that mode. I'm not unlocking this thing ever. So it's going into the haven't used tier. And there you go. Those are the AR rankings. They're on the screen right now. Take a look if you want. I don't know why you would. Now we move on to the battle rifles. The Lockman 7.62, C tier. and this is C tier for battle rifles. So overall, this is about D tier, F tier. High recoil, not that high damage to make it useful at least, because the thing with battle rifles is they usually come in semi-automatic, but the second you switch them into fully automatic, they lose damage. So you either fire slower but do more damage, or you fire faster but lose damage. And I couldn't be bothered to spam because that's going to ruin my controller. So that's going into C tier, just because the amount of recoil that it has and the amount of damage it does is not worth it. And it moves around pretty slow. And there are better alternatives in the battle rifle class. This thing might just be the worst gun in the game. It's like an EBR from MW 2019, but worse. It does less damage, it has like more recoil, and when you switch it to full auto, again, less damage, so it's actually pretty dog shit. F tier, definitely one of the worst guns in the game. Buff it, do something about it, just anything. Now, the best battle rifle, the TAC V, is like the TAC 56's bigger brother that's actually useful. Sorta kinda. A tier battle rifle, which means it's an A tier gun, I'd say, actually. Yeah, this is an A tier gun. I'd say it translates well into the meta, and overall, that's not even that bad, just in the grand scheme of things. A tier. And the final battle rifle, the F-TAC Recon. We don't like this thing, nobody does. It's like an M4, but it fires fatter bullets, and it only has like 20 rounds max or something. So, it's not really worth it. Just use an M4. D tier. So there is the battle rifles. Take a look if you want. I don't know why you would. You should only be focusing on A tier. Now we move on to the SMGs. Now we start out with the most mid SMG in the world. This is the Vel 46, otherwise known as the MP7. High fire rate, very good mobility, and that's about it. Abysmal range. The recoil is not that bad, but at range, just like most of the SMGs, you'll notice it. And overall, the bullets just don't do that much damage. The fire rate really carries this thing. So, C tier. Now, the worst SMG, the MX9, it's the worst SMG for a reason. It has a pretty low fire rate. It only has 32 round stock, and the most you can get, I think, is 40. So, even in like ammo, it's not that good. Iron sights are bad. Mobility is pretty bad. The recoil is pretty bad for an SMG, so it's the worst one, D tier. The Lockman Sub, or the MP5, this thing's actually pretty good. I'd say it's one of the better SMGs. I'd say top 3 SMGs maybe. High fire rate, decent damage, low recoil, great movement speed. Overall, A tier gun. Not that much flaws about it. There's just guns that kind of do it better. Now, the Vaznev, one of the guns that does it better than the MP5. High fire rate, high damage, pretty good range for an SMG, actually. I'm kind of surprised at the range of this thing. And the recoil is pretty manageable. The only thing that really brings it down is the iron sights. And that if you equip a barrel, that kind of makes it better for medium range engagements, that really lowers your aim down sight speed. So that's kind of a downgrade. But overall, this thing is still really good. It does have a brother in this class, though. And I'd say that the other gun that's pretty close to this one is better. And I'll touch on that when we get to that gun. And I'll explain the mini rivalry between them and the discussion about them in the community and which one's better. But the Vaznev, I say it goes into A tier. The FSS Hurricane, probably the most boring SMG. It's like a P90, but with an M4 body, and it shoots slower than the P90, does less damage than the P90, has less range than the P90, and has a slower aim down sight speed than the P90. Yeah, it's going into B tier. It's actually not that bad. It's just worse than the P90 in every single way. Now, the Mini Bach. This is the Vaznev's cylindrical shaped brother. This thing comes with 64 rounds stock, which to me automatically makes it better. And it fires slower, but it does more damage than the Vaznev. And that's the thing with the Vaznev and the Mini Bach. Some people say the Vaznev is better because of the fire rate. Other people say the Mini Bach is better just because of how controllable it is and the fact that the bullets do more damage. So, between those two, a lot of people choose the Vaznev, a lot of people choose the Mini Bach. Me, I choose the Mini Bach. It is the S tier SMG. The S tier SMG. Now, the Vaz P. This is like a mix of an MP5 and an MP7, which means it takes the worst parts of the MP5 and mixes them with the worst parts of the MP7, which is kind of weird. The only good thing about it that's relatively okay is that it actually has decent range for an SMG. Decent range. Not good, decent range. C tier. And now the PDSW 528 or the P90. The P90 is pretty good. As stated previously, it has a rip-off in its own gun class, the Hurricane, and this thing has a higher fire rate, moves around better recoil, and more range. So it's already better than the Hurricane, and overall, I'd say it's one of the top 5 SMGs in the game. A tier. Now, the final SMG, the Fennec 45. Now, I don't know if this is a controversial take or not, but I know a lot of people love the Fennec. Me personally, I do not like the Fennec. I liked it in the old game. I loved it in the old game. But this game, there's something up with it. I don't know what it is, but there's something wrong with it. It seems to have too much recoil for an SMG. Like, if you see the recoil on it, it's an experience. I'll tell you that. It's an experience. But apart from that, this thing is really good at its job of clearing out rooms. So it's still going into B tier. There's the SMG list. Take a look at it. It's actually pretty tightly packed, I'd say. Pretty close, apart from the MX-9 and the BAS-P. I'd say it's pretty close. Any of the top 7 guns are pretty useful. Just don't use those last 2. The BAS-P and the MX-9, don't use them. Don't use them. Now, we move on to the shotgun. It's probably the most toxic class in the game, and probably one of my favorites to grind. There's only 4 guns in this class as well, so we should be able to move through this one pretty quickly, and they're all pretty similar. The first one is actually the most different out of any of them. This is the Lockwood 300, otherwise known as the 725. And if you played Modern Warfare 2019, yeah, I can see those flashbacks. I know what happens when you hear that name. I know exactly what happens when you hear that name. You hear the... I already know you hear it. I know you hear it. I know you have PTSD. I know your vision is going gray right now and you're staring into your wall just imagining getting sniped with a shotgun from 50 meters away when it doesn't even have slugs in it. I know you're thinking that. But don't worry, because in this game it's been severely nerfed. It used to be S tier in the old game. In this game, I'd say it's A tier. It's okay. It's not bad. It's just like... It's been severely nerfed, but it still has crazy range for a shotgun. So, yeah. A tier. Now, the Expedite 12, probably one of the coolest inspects in the game in my opinion, but overall, it's pretty boring. The only thing that it has going for it is the fact that it is the only semi-automatic shotgun, and that reason alone pushes it up to B tier. If it wasn't semi-automatic, it'd be like D tier, C tier, but since it is semi-automatic and you can fire it pretty fast, it goes into B tier. Now, the worst shotgun in the game, the Bryson 800, is exactly like the Expedite 12, but it's not semi-automatic, which means it goes into D tier. Now, the Bryson 800 has a cousin, and it's called the Bryson 890, and that thing is actually pretty good. It has less range than the Bryson 800, but it is a lot faster, and it has detachable magazines. Which means the reloads are pretty quick on this thing for a shotgun, because if you haven't noticed from your other screens, the 725, you need to break open the gun, load in 2 shells, and close it back up. And the Expedite and the Bryson, you actually have to, load in the shells from the bottom and then re-rack the gun, which is, takes a long time. But with the Bryson 890, as you can see here, you just need to take out the magazine, put it back in, pump the pump, pause, and boom, you're ready to fire. Pause. So yeah, it goes into B tier for that only reason. Apart from that, the damage is pretty normal. Here's the shotgun ranking. It's on the screen. You shouldn't take you that long of a look, but if you need to, pause the video. LMGs. We started out with probably one of the stupidest names in history, the Seiken MG38. Which I like to call it the Suckin' because I'm corny. Yeah, this thing is it's not that good. It's just a really boring LMG. Like, when you think of the word LMG, this is what comes to your mind, this thing. Like, you remember the LMG from Fortnite? I'm pretty sure it was this thing. Yeah, it's not that good. It's the most basic LMG that you could get in the game. C tier. Not that good. The HCR 56, or the H-bar as I think it was called in the old game. Yeah, much worse. Much worse. D tier. It's like the AUG, but heavier. That's it. It only has 60 rounds as well as an LMG, which is pretty useless. D tier. The 5.56 Icarus. It's like an M4, but it's a machine gun, which means it has all the good stuff of the M4, just with more ammo, and it's a little bit slower. So, I'd say it's also a B tier. The RAL MG. Oh boy. There's a lot I could say about it, positive and negative, but I'll try to condense it. It shoots sniper bullets. You have 75 rounds of sniper ammo to shoot. B tier. It's actually pretty good. It's just the recoil is a bit much. Now, probably the best gun in the entire game, the RPK. It's like an AK, but with more ammo, more range, less recoil, and better barrels, which can also increase the range and reduce the recoil even more. Yeah, this is the best gun in the game for sure. If there was an S plus tier, no, not even S plus, X tier. It's like, it's purple, right? And it has like all this like crown shit around it. That's exactly where it goes. It goes into X tier, but I couldn't figure that out. So S tier. The Rap H. I don't like this thing at all. I use it for the camo grind, and I'd say it was my least favorite LMG, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. High fire rate, but it only has 75 rounds. So the 75 rounds go by in an instant. C tier. That's the LMG ranking. Take a look. You should know which one is the best. If you couldn't tell, it's the one in the red box that has the letter S in it. That is the best gun in the entire game. If you use this thing, fuck you. And we'll move on to the next class. Marksman rifles. It's definitely my least favorite class in the game. Actually, no, that's a lie. Battle rifles are my least favorite, but this is my second least favorite. This is the EBR 14. This is the SO14's better counterpart. Semi-automatic only, but it actually does decent damage, and the fire rate is okay for a marksman rifle, so it's the standard for marksman rifles. This specific semi-automatic marksman rifle goes into B tier. The best marksman rifle in the game, the SPR 208, is not semi-automatic. The SPR is a bolt-action marksman rifle that does crazy damage and has the mobility of an SMG. A sniper rifle, basically, with SMG mobility. So take with that what you will. S tier. The Lockwood Mark II, the cowboy gun, definitely my favorite gun. I think it's one of the funniest guns in the game, because you have to remember, we're playing a game called Modern Warfare. Just dwell on that for a little bit. The game is called Modern Warfare, and we're using a gun that cowboys used. So I find that pretty funny, B tier, because it's actually not that bad. Nah, the LMS, my second least favorite marksman rifle, and definitely one of my least favorite guns in the entire game. I don't like this thing at all. It's semi-automatic. Yeah, that's it. That's all that's special about it. D tier. The SAB-50, the SPR's cousin. It's like the SPR, but it's a bit lighter, and it has 10 rounds instead of 5. That's it really. A tier. And the final marksman rifle, and definitely the worst one, the TAC-M. This thing has a horrible fire rate. It doesn't do that much damage for it being a marksman rifle. And it's really slow. You might as well just use the TAC-V. Not worth using it. F tier, definitely one of my least favorite guns in the game. I'd actually say this is the worst gun in the game. I'll give my opinions on the best and worst guns in the game at the end. But this is for sure, like, capped. It's capped. Like, the highest it could go is bottom 3. Those are the marksman rifles on the screen right now. Take a look. You should be able to tell which ones are it and which ones are shit. Yeah, let's move on to the next tier. Snipers. We'll start out with definitely the worst sniper in the class, the MCPR 300. it's the benchmark. It's the baseline. It's the baseline for all snipers. Decent range, decent damage, decent scope, stock. C tier. Next gun, the Victus XMR. Definitely my second favorite sniper rifle, I'd say, behind another one. Fires 50 cal, which means it does a lot of damage, and for a time in Warzone, it was the only sniper that could one-shot headshot at any range if you use explosive rounds. But they patched that, and that severely nerfed it. So I'd say it goes into A tier. Now the other 50 cal gun, the Signal 50, also goes into A tier, but it's not really special like the Victus XMR was. It's special in a different way. The Victus XMR did a lot of damage, but it took a really long time to like get to the next bullet. This thing is semi-automatic, if you couldn't tell from the background footage, and it kind of sounds like the beginning of My Milkshake Brings All the Boys to the Yard. So just listen closely. Listen closely.
My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, and they're like,
Yeah, now you can't unhear it. Get fucked. A tier, definitely the best sniper rifle in the game. The LAB 330, definitely the most forgettable sniper rifle. It's like the SPR, but with a scope, and that's it. B tier. And the final sniper rifle, and definitely my favorite sniper rifle, the SPX 80. It's not my favorite because it's good. It's not my favorite because it's bad. I like the SPX 80 because it looks disgusting. Look at it. Just take a look at it. Just take a look at it. When you think of a sniper rifle, you think of either what the Victus looks like if you played Fortnite, or you think of the SPX 80 if you played old Call of Duty games. AKA, you're thinking of the Intervention. And that's what this thing reminds me of. We don't have the Intervention yet, but this is the closest thing we have to it, and I love it. But overall, it's really not anything special. It's like the LAB, but with more range. B tier. And those are the sniper rifles. Take a look if you want. As I said, they're pretty close together. I'd say they're all relatively the same, apart from the Signal, which is why the Signal is the best in class. Now we move on to the smallest class, melee, where there are only two things, the riot shield and the knife. We'll get over this quickly. The riot shield is D tier because it does its job of protecting you from bullets well, but now you need 3 hits to kill somebody instead of 2. And the knife is A tier because it does its job well of making you run around fast and killing people with one stab. So A tier. Now we move on to pistols. The P890, definitely the best pistol. If you remember a video of mine from when the MW2 beta was out, there's a one-shot pistol now. Yeah.
Oh my god, he has a fucking shotgun. Wait, did he kill me at the... What the fuck?
That's this thing. So, S tier. It's the only S tier pistol. Another gun that's definitely up there with one of the best in-specs. The pistols definitely have some of the better in-specs, but the 50GS, or the Desert Eagle as most people should call it, is definitely up there with one of the coolest in-specs in the game. It does high damage, but you need to be accurate. So, C tier. The X12, it's actually pretty impressive how, fast this thing can fire for it being semi-automatic only. And of course, in akimbo, it is a lot better. A tier. Now we move on to the worst pistol, the Basilisk. The revolver definitely does have the best inspec, or one of the best inspects that's not for a blueprint in Call of Duty history. Like, I could look at this animation for hours and not get bored from him like spinning it around on his finger. He even does it when he's akimbo. And now the final pistol, the X13 Auto, aka the Glock 18. And you might be thinking, auto, is it fully automatic? And you'd be correct, it is indeed fully automatic. I had to use the 33 round extended magazines just to make sure that it wasn't short enough for this segment. I had to, this segment long enough for me to speak over it. Yeah, I need to use 33 round magazines for that. Definitely B tiers, just because of how good it is since it's fully automatic. And those are the pistols. Take a gander if you want. For some reason, you should just be using those top 3. And if you're trying to fuck off, use the bottom 2 if you want. But yeah, we move on to the final class, launchers. Now the launchers have 2 clear divisions. There are free fire launchers, and then there are lock-on launchers. And there's one launcher that I really hate that's a mix of the 2. And that launcher is the Pila. Fuck the Pila. This is the worst launcher in the game. I'm gonna die on that hill. I'd rather use the Joker than this piece of shit. And you might be thinking, but if it's lock-on and it's free fire, shouldn't that mean that it's really good at taking down planes and people? And you'd be right if you're 10 feet away, because the rocket travels so slowly on this thing that I'm pretty sure if you put a donut on a fishing rod and then taped it to the back of a fat person and told them to run to try and catch it, that person would run faster than the Pila rocket can travel. F tier. Dog shit ass fucking launcher. The Strela P. Definitely my favorite launcher. Has the fastest rocket in the game, for sure. This thing fires so quickly, you have no clue. It is actually ridiculous. I wish I could illustrate it over range. And of course, it's free fire. And it's really good at killing vehicles, which means if you account for the drop that the rocket has, if you hit a helicopter, you can guarantee that it's going to get disabled or it's going to blow up just instantly. So, A tier. Now the Joker. I think this is most people's least favorite thing in the game. And for me, it's not my least favorite. I'd rather have this over the SO14 or the TAC-M. This thing, of course, isn't that useful unless you're trying to take down vehicles, which is what it's for. And it does that job very well. So for it fulfilling its role, I'd give it a D tier. And the final weapon in the game, and definitely the one that's most hated by a lot of people, the RPG-7 or the RPG. Manually aimed, decent rocket speed, absolutely the butt of like millions of jokes. I even made an RPG joke in my last, the most COD lobby in the world. If you remember that guy that blew me up with the RPG, I think you'll remember what was over that. RPG-7, that's a W. I'd give it a B tier. And there we go. You can take a look at the launchers. That is it. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I applaud you. You gotta be a strong individual to make it this far. Thanks. Ciao. Bye.
I know you heard all about me. See me on TV, Instagram, bitch, I'm poppin'. Bitch, I'm poppin'. Cash card, in my lane, no stopping. Niggas need this and they tryna.